Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, logos means the study or science, Sattology means the science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means the science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. Today I have a very, very special guest, one of the earliest guests, and also you can say, without delay, let us welcome Shri Sharad Mohan.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, America, and good evening, India.
So,
Namaskar.
uh, so Sharadji, one thing, this latest book you have launched, 2047, India America War, a Paradox, Prophecy, and Possibility. Now, when you say paradox, what did you mean by paradox here?
So, a paradox could be a statement where it can be true, it can be false, but it's like a multiverse or a parallel universe. In a parallel universe, you can be alive, you can be a dead. It's all like playing with the words. So paradox in that context. Now, paradox in case of India America is very interesting because India and America are two great democracies. They are two allies, and they have a large population to take care of by the government. And there are a lot of things on the international level where they have similar viewpoint, thought process, like the rule of law, fight against the terrorism, eradication of poverty, education, all those things, right? So one statement says that India and America are friends, allies, and how can there be a war? And the paradox says that based on the history, the power position is always challenged after every 100 years. And what I am trying to weave in this book, a story where in 2047, when India becomes 100-year-old, post-colonial government, and America also kind of becomes 102 years old in the superpower reign, how they will come into a conflict with a lot of things which will result into friction and hence what. So it's a paradox in that context, that in one side I'm saying they are friendly democracies, and on the side I'm saying will be a friction which will end up into some kind of a war type situation, because there is another history where America has always we have always ended up fighting against our friends, whether it's a Vietnam, whether it's a Iran, Iraq, any country. If you see the history of America, initially all these countries were allies, very close friends, and suddenly something happened, and then America totally went against them. Right now it's China. America literally built poor China into a superpower. Now today it is against China. So all those things I have weaved together in some kind of correlation, and that's why I call it paradox. Thank you.
And the opposite is also true because in case of Japan, they first destroyed it and then they became friends.
Yeah.
And in case of South Korea also, they literally destroyed North Korea in that war, and then they became friends.
Right.
So some people may argue that America is a very dependable partner, and these are people in India who may say that USA is a very dependable partner of everybody because they stand with them in times of their need. Uh, One example, maybe during the COVID-19, America stood with many countries, provide them aid, including India. So, what do you think it stands there? Your book, the premise of this book.
Right. So again, if you see, my book also has paradox, prophecy, and possibility, and all these things in the end results into a warning, or a kind of I would say signaling that India and America, for the larger humanity, should not fight against each other, and any pitfall or any crack which they see, which will end up say 20 years or 25 years down the line, they need to fix it so that they don't come into a friction. Because for the world peace, these two democracies have to be together. Because who benefits? It's the communist China who will benefit because of this friction. And Indians should not forget that America has done a lot since the George W. Bush time. Things have changed drastically. America has changed a lot of its policies, being a superpower, and the way it deals with the other countries. It has given a lot of leeway and breathing space to India, whether it's a nuclear related stuff, whether it's a defense related stuff, a lot of things, right? So I would say yes, America has definitely helped India, and India is grateful for that. Um, but as India grows into stature, the gratefulness will be more. They will aspire for parity, and I'm not seeing it as a Indian or as an American. I'm just seeing as a strategist that when a nation grows, like a nation like India in 2047 will be 12 to 15 trillion dollar economy. Again, maths and all those things could be worked out. The strong sense of parity with the superpower America will grow. A lot of position which America takes on the international stage, India may differ, and that's where two friends should have some kind of agreeable solution rather than getting into friction, which will result into a fight. Yeah, that is what this book is saying.
There is I just, we have discussed it many times, but I get reminded of Indira Gandhi when she visited during Ronald Reagan's presidency. And this very classical speech is from the Ronald Reagan archives. You can watch it also on YouTube. She says, "You are a very new nation, but we are a very old civilization."
Nice.
And now, very beautiful speech she opened up, and very gracefully. And you can see that Ronald Reagan is almost 6 feet high, is very tall person.
Yes, yeah, he was.
And Indira Gandhi is short, but that speech, you can look at the facial expressions of Ronald Reagan, like she made everybody feel smaller with her words. Very powerful speech.
Yeah.
And probably after that, uh, I have not seen that kind of speech by any Indian leader so far. uh, I did like Narendra Modi's speech 2015 or 2016 when he visited, when he said, "We are not going to file patent for yoga, even though we own yoga. Yoga is from here." Now, the point is that that also showed that a possible friction point, because India claims to be a Loktantra from Mahabharata times. The Loktantra is being discussed over there. And in India, people think that Lokatantra is democracy. But there is in my last book, I also wrote that the democracy was implemented in USA when the European settlers became more in number than Native Americans. Before that, there was no democracy. And also, the voting rights were not given to the Native Americans. So, people of the First Nations were not given voting rights in the beginning stages of this democracy. So, what is your historical perspective in that way, where India may claim to be the biggest, the largest, and the oldest democracy also, which is already done?
Nice. No, good. So two part to this. First part you brought about Indira Gandhi, the iconic Indian Prime Minister, and the similar iconic President of America, Ronald Reagan. So in my book, always put some photos, and if you see, I have posted a photo of Indira Gandhi and Ronald Reagan. Um, so people will love this photo from the archive. A very two great personalities of the world. Now, coming back to the Lok Tantra, yes, India is the oldest democracy. It claims from if you are believing in the scriptures, Indian Sanatan scriptures, the democracy was much beyond say when the first the lineage of if you see Ramayana, the first lineage, the first king. From there onwards, there was a lot of input from the people in the governance, but eventually the administrator used to carry on. But there was a lot of both way communication. So yes, in that way, and if you come back to more modern and contemporary history, even during Magad, Vaishali was supposed to be one of the oldest Prajatantra. Excuse me. So yes, India can claim that, and that's what I'm saying in this book. That lot of definition which the Western world, especially P5 and European Union, and mostly influenced American think tank, whatever they claim will be challenged once. Already China is challenging a lot of stuff on the global stage. Similarly, India will be challenging once it has certain muscles with the economy, and it already has a very strong military. A lot of things on the definition of who was first, the entire history, the way it's taught here, all those things will be challenged. So India claim to be the oldest democracy is totally acceptable, because even in American education system, they do one thing, they accept that this is the oldest living civilization, and the civilization was not. It was very complex civilization which wrote Vedas, Mahabharatas, Ramayanas, and all those kind of a complex and very advanced human work. So in that situation, yes, I would say India is the oldest democracy, Prajatantra, because another thing which you will see is, and I have given example in my book, is in a Prajatantra, Praja has a lot of say on the king. And in India, the price rise will bring down the government. The onion price will bring down the government, right? When a flood happens, or when any natural calamity happens in India, which is not even affluent, even half affluent as America, the state government or the central government has a responsibility to take care of its citizens. They cannot just brush aside saying that some insurance company will come, the way it happened during Katrina or any such natural calamity in America, where it is totally left to the insurance companies. Government has literally no role to play other than federal tax. Federal tax goes to only roads. Apart from that, everything people have to buy. So there are a lot of debate, and the whole definition created by Anglo-Saxon politicians and thinkers will be challenged. And one last point I wanted to add is, you mentioned about America not having voting right for such a long time. America is primarily their success. Their predecessor was British Empire and British people, and even England was ruling the world since 1600. They had a democracy in 1884 or 85. Exact date I'm not sure. I've mentioned in my book, but they themselves did not have democracy till 1800. Imagine, and India got freedom in 1947, and day one started with democracy. So, yeah.
And India had some head start, but the one of the things is like in one of my last book, Gold, Glory, and God, the it was whimsically divided. Canada and USA whimsically divided from Mexico till Washington, and probably till British Columbia were Spanish were ruling, like almost like cutting like this diagonally. And then from New Orleans to Canada, again Schwarzkopf and another place, French were ruling, and that included some parts of Illinois as well. On the East Coast, it was mostly English, and then recently Black Lives Matter happened, and the fault lines came out again. And the fault lines came out where the Black Lives Matter, this thought that they're speaking for the African Americans as well as the Native Americans. They said it was very detested movement by many people. I was questioning why, because but the ways and means I don't agree with, because the too much arsonist and too much of destruction happened, which I personally don't agree with that, because it puts people like us more scared, make us more scared. Now, so when you look at the history, then the first 13 colonies, and then later on started the frontier wars. Most of the Native Americans were pushed to Oklahoma, Tennessee, and other areas, these southern areas, and they were pushed, and then they made reservations. Reservations means safety for the European settlers. So these guys will not come out of the European reservations. Obviously, now all those things have been broken. Now, when you say about the possibility, is there a possibility, because the word was said that nationalism is bad, patriotism is good. Now it has some roots over there, because the first nation states, the first five nation states, Ojibwe tribe and other tribes of the Northeast. Now, what happens in by 2047 to these tribes? Their population now is again increasing. It decreased from approximately 100 million people in maybe 1400s or 1500s to now it is 5 million. 95 million people vanished. In 1908, the Roman Catholic Church declared that the conquest of America is over. And now the European settlers are more in number. That time there were 15 million in all the 13 northeastern states. And that means the remaining population had gone. So what do you think of a possibility of America becoming weaker by 2047 internally?
So, Aditya, congratulations for your the last book. I think it's very, very informative. If you can show the book on this show, that will be great. The God Glory. If you can show that book, it has a very deep insight and research into the Native Americans and all those things. Mm, the Native Americans, as you know, we all know, is an infamous part of the American history, and I have written that also, brief pointers. And your book will be the deep um, content from that perspective. So, yes, America will, and I think there is a pressure, as you mentioned, the BLM, the way is the CRT is back in a wrong way, right? I compare, yeah, just yeah. So for the viewers, that's an awesome book available on Amazon. Just buy that book. It has a very deep research. So the way CRT, wokeism, all these things are happening, definitely society, American society was lacking a lot of things, which and all these fault lines have now been opened. Good or bad, that's a separate debate. The way it is implemented, bring an analogy with the farmers movement in India, where even though it looks for an outsider, these are farmers fighting against a very strong government, but internally, if you see, it was not a farmer exact farmer movement of the entire country. It was farmers movement of two states of India, and these were not the small farmers. They are the super rich farmers who also control the middleman, which is the small farmers and the rich farmers. So there are a lot of things. So the BLM to me looks like that. From outside, the concept is so good. We all love Martin Luther King, who was inspired by Gandhi, and we would definitely like the atrocities which the black people went through in America during the slavery era should be abolished, and any scar, any old memory should be removed. But to do something good, the way it has been done is bad. The BLM movement has become more of a identity movement, with identity of not the black cause, but rather people who are affluent, politicians, and power brokers. They are enjoying it, and the poor blacks are still waiting for standing in the line for food stamp, or facing the some kind of a discrimination, whether it's a pay or work, intentionally or unintentionally. That is a separate topic of research. So the third part of your question was, is America becoming weak? Yes, America is becoming weak. That's where my book is pointing. At the very preface I have written is America is becoming weak. What we saw in Afghanistan, ever since Iraq war, where America never fought alone. It took 29 allies countries to bomb a poor Iraq. From since then, the image has slowly gone down. And then the way it has handled COVID, the way it has handled China, and the way it is still handling China, all these things, the way America literally ran away from Afghanistan, living allies, friend, everybody, I would say flabbergasted. Uh, this was not a behavior of a superpower that America was in past. So America is becoming weak. Wokeism, CRT will definitely affect the society. Now, will it join the people? I'm not sure. Already in Texas, we have Texit, like Brexit, where 400K people side. It may be a joke as of now, but the idea is there. An idea is a very dangerous thing, right? You don't need the entire people to come and divide somebody. It's just an idea by the very influential people who can influence the school, who can influence the police institution. The Ted Cruz, who is not a fringe politician, he's the main stream politician who fought for the presidential election and is still a very active Republican politician. He has also said that if the way America is getting divided between blue state and red state, and way uh, the Republicans are feeling pressure in a electoral politics where they think they cannot ever come and win the White House because of all these calculations. They are asking to break away from America, and they are saying that we will separate the army, we'll take the NASA, we'll take the oil. All these type of views was not even expected from a strong and superpower like America. So there, the fault line has been created, and any aspiration, even if it is small, these type of secessionist idea is will make America weak. And it's not a Cold War era where America has to only take care of Russia. Now there are 5 or 6 strong players, and China is one of them. And China has a population, China has civilization. So America is growing weak, and politicians can still stop it. But unfortunately, I don't see any politician of the stature who can join and bring all of them together. Yeah.
So one of the things which really comes to the mind is, I really like the title of your book, and India America 2047 is really, I think, it's the first book which has come on this topic, and the again the possibility of a military confrontation. Did you cover that aspect of it? Because the way India is now becoming self-reliant in the military areas, especially in the technologies which America used to be proud of. And obviously, American researchers have full faith in them. They'll always come up with something new. They're already coming up. In fact, they tested laser guns on the ships recently. And that is nobody in the world has ever done it. People are thinking about it, but Americans have already activated it. So, what do you think on the military parity?
So, first of all, why a war is happened? I'm just quickly checking from my book. I would rather like users to read it. When a dominance is challenged, a war happens. And the dominance of America will be challenged by 2047 by a very strong economy of India, and China would have already weakened it a little bit by challenging America in around 2035 to 2037. That's my calculation, and a lot of analyst calculation. That's where China will really rise in all aspect, and will be challenging America. So America will be already a little bit fatigue for fighting a very strong power China that it itself created. And then by 2047, when it will be trying to lick its wound and trying to become stronger, then another power will rise, at this time India. But India will challenge differently. India will not challenge America on a military term. But I have given few equation on that in my book for the readers to read. But one important part is, for a war. See, for a war, the way I have structured this book is, first is why a war will happen. So dominance will be challenged, right? Dominance in the sense that America has dominance over the financial institutions of the world, the environment laws, the nuclear laws, the marine boundary definition, the terrorism definition, the minority related atrocities definition. Everything is America centric, and this is where the dominance will be challenged. Uh, and for a war, if you look into Sanatan Dharma's four pillars, we have a dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And I have given a interesting analogy where I said, where I write and I read from my book is, a war needs dharma, which means righteous reason to wage a war. Okay. Then comes arth, which is the capabilities of both the nations, America and India, to fight a war. And by 2047, the capabilities and artha will not be questioned from India perspective. Then comes kama. Now, even if you have a dharma and artha with you, kama is an intent. Unless until these two nations have an intent to go for a decisive mm, um, war, the war will not happen. So kama is intent. Even if the nation have a reason and capabilities, it is the intent that will make it wage a war. And the last is what happens from a war, a moksha. Moksha, to me, what I have written is a liberation from the status quo. The status quo here means the status of America as a superpower and India as aspiring power. That will end, right? Either America will continue its dominance or it will give space to India. So all those things I have built in the book. As far as the military parity is concerned, America is far, far ahead. From the military parity perspective, it currently has around 800 bases across the world. It has almost how much 900 billion funding in the military budget, right? It has around 5,500 nuclear warhead compared to India's 150 or 200. So there is a huge difference. But this is 2022. But 2047, the things will change drastically. And in spite of all these numbers which America has, critics will say that India will probably having a false parity notion if it goes and fight against America. Well, Vietnam, when it fought against America, America was already a $3 trillion economy with a strong army. But still, Vietnam went and fought because a country which has a civilizational background and which is very much needed to fight a long war, they have a different intent to fight a war when they get into the war. Unlike a lot of European countries where you just defeat one king, the entire country kneels down. When you kill one army general, entire country will kneel down. That will not happen with the country's civilizational country, ancient civilizational country like India and China or Asian country. And that's where I think the war will be very, very damaging to the world peace.
The viewers who are watching it and who will watch on YouTube also, please do buy this book, available on Amazon. You can search on Sharad Mohan. You'll see his other 4 titles also, very popular titles. And so one of the things which comes to the mind is when we talk about military parity, and obviously India is no match right now, but you talked about civilizational. Now, there is a huge confusion about civilization in India because of the secularism promoted by the earlier governments of India, wherein the core civilization of India was ignored since independence, starting with someone who was always engaged in Bharate Khoj. He was living in Bharat, but he was searching for Bharat. And that family has continued to hold, even today, they are continuing to hold a discourse, not a popular discourse, but generally they still are able to hold a particular viewpoint, which gave rise to countries like Pakistan and countries like Bangladesh. So, what is your view on that, where India itself ignores their own civilizational kind of global superiority in a way?
That's one of the leftover of the colonial era, where 200 years, the breed of intellectual who were mainly the sycophants surviving on the British Raj money, who tried to change the whole narrative and the thought process of an entire nation, a civilization like India. but things are changing. The institutions like IITs and a lot of educational institutions, a lot of youth in India, they because now with the social media and internet available on every mobile phone, and India has the biggest, largest mobile uh, population, people are getting to read, even though they are reading a lot of negative stuff, but they are also knowing more about their civilization. So there is definitely a strong belief among a lot of people that there is no dispute as far as civilizational aspect is concerned. It's the date and all those things which people get sucked into when they fight. But back to Vedas is a very strong voice starting in India, where people want to associate with their old traditional root, but still keep on moving forward looking, but with on a strong uh, civilizational fundamentals, right? Everybody wants to have a very rich association with their very rich history. So that has been challenged. And that's the reason why if you see a lot of political movements or election campaign happening, they all trying to relate back in their own way to their ancient past. It was the communist regime, a communist left-driven Congress during uh, 70 years of rule that influenced and tried to take Indians away from their ancient past. Nehru's intention was that, by doing this, you will be forward-looking and progressive, and you will be basing your development on science. But that was a very, very naive and not very well thought idea. But he was a politician, and he was able to influence some big institutions who actually wrote books and all those things. So now things are improving. We expect a little bit more, but 70 years of such bad history has definitely affected the nation. Entire bureaucracy, if you interview all the bureaucrats from 60s who actually play a very important role in Indian system, uh, they are all ingrained with the secular here is taken very differently. There's thing that if you are anti-minority, you are non-secular, but and they don't feel pride, and just to make the minority feel connected, they went against their own civilization. They There are a lot of things which was wrong. So I think there is a strong voice among youth to go back to the Vedas, to go back to their root, and that will be the strength of India going forward.
One of the things we see that America has always been like, if you look at the American uh, politics right now, where the think tanks have been opposing India, most of the think tanks, and their Brookings Institute is one of them, which is I don't know why it is called a think tank. It is a garbage tank, but the think tanks have been opposing India because Brookings is controlled by Qatar money. We all know that. And the politics, but the politicians on both sides, whether it's a Republican or Democrats, have always been recently in last few years supporting India. Now, and we all know that American political stance keeps changing. There is a foreign policy of America is known to be rewarding dictatorships. They don't like adversaries. You look at the media reports of other democracies, they'll say it's a sham. Russia is a sham democracy, according to them. And anyone who is an enemy is a sham democracy. So, and democracy is something exported by US a lot. Still, they want to call others as sham. And you look at the media reports of Putin, media reports of France, which they don't like, most of the Americans don't like. So do you think that this political bonhomie or the universal appreciation of India can change with the Democrats coming out on and producing reports which are working against India? Do you think this will change over the years now?
So I have covered in my book two chapters. My book has 5 chapters. I had The chapter 2, the heading is America's extraterritorial activism or exceptionalism. And chapter 4 is White Man's Burden versus Indic Worldview. And I've covered a lot of and given a lot of anecdotes and examples and tried to show how these two how American politicians and the think tank have from very long time seen India as a brown race, a third world country, even though it has a huge population. The way in the American setup, Hinduism, which is the 80% around 1 billion Indians, 1 plus billion Indian follow that faith, is not even considered as a religion. They talk about Buddhism. They talk about so anything other than Hinduism. And when they talk about Hinduism now, recently they are only talking about the negative aspect of it, calling one of the India's most popular state chief minister, Mr. Adityanath, as some kind of devil. They will show Trishul as a sign of pagan. All kinds of things. They have called names for Krishna. So the Americans think tank still they are obsessed with their old glory and obsessed with the viewpoints which they got from British. They are continuing that. They still think that the Churchill is the father of the entire world, and superimposed our dear Mahatma Gandhi on us as a father of the nation. That's a separate debate, but I don't want to be creating controversy here. But yes, it's a very racial way of seeing the world, right? Even on one side, America calls a lot of countries as a friend, and that's where I as an Indian American, or you as an American, we would like to change that mindset, because it's a high time when people have to change so that's why initially when I mentioned that BLM, even though it looks very good from outside, inside there's a problem. People like the Indian Americans will be, or in fact they do support these type of movement, because the larger anger is this, more than the BLM. They think that they are totally marginalized, especially the Hindus in America. There is no code book. The local law doesn't understand that. One thing I have even given that the way Americans collect the data, whether it's an election, whether it's medical, you have to write a race. Now, which science, and America claims to be the father of the science, and they know everything in the science. The rest of the world is just illiterate, right? Even though when we were doing all those kind of science much before even this civilization was there. So what my point is, and I have given in the book, is you collect the data based on the race. This shows your mindset. And you say that this data is collected because you will have a different way of treating, say, Hispanic community or the Asian community. But these are all I don't want to use the bad word early in the morning, but this is just a racial profiling. Tell me which research, what data you have taken from all these years to come out with a medicine which is very centric to, say, Hispanic, very focused to the yellow race, because everything America sees in color, right? It's in America when I came to know about the color, right? In India, the color was Gora and all this thing, but here, black, brown, yellow, all kinds of color came into the discourse. They will have all kinds of the medicines. So now the medicine for a certain race is based on their immunity, their life, their eating habit, their culture, their lot of things, their the genes, right? If you are basing your science on that, then show me one result where you have actually come out with a medicine, say COVID medicine, which works for Indian brown race differently than black race. If all these things are just a bullshit, then why are you creating data based on the race, ethnicity? It's as good as what Indians used to do by collecting the caste data. And now you say that caste is a problem in India, whereas you yourself collect all those kind of racial divide data. So there are lot of problem like that, Aditya, here, which I have covered in my book very deep. America always had a class problem, and that's I mentioned that's what I have mentioned in my book. So for viewers, please read it. We cannot cover everything in this, but yes, I have mentioned that.
Yeah, please read that book in detail. I think many areas are covered. And one very surprising thing was there, University of San Diego last year organized a conference, 2021, I think August it was, where they said the caste, and they talked about the European caste system. And they did not say Indian caste system, they say European caste system, where the Spanish considered themselves superior to native Mexicans.
Wow.
And that's what they covered. And then where the European settlers covered themselves of a higher caste. And this is the first time I saw the real usage of the word caste. It's a European term. And then they said the British considered them higher caste than Native Americans. The French considered them higher caste than Native Americans. The Dutch and even the Russians also had a colony in the US. People don't know that. Fort Russo in California was a Russian territory. And so Russians considered themselves higher caste, and a lot of people. So anyway, thank you for covering all these points. And one last point, what do you see as India's position globally in terms of politics, in terms of diplomacy and economy, and also military in next 10 years?
India will be India growth will continue. India has all the right coordinates. It has a huge youth population, the entire middle class, the upper class, financial. I'm saying financially, the categorization, the tax based on the taxpayer data, and even the not have-nots class in India. The one common point is the social enhancement only comes through education. Even if you're a billionaire, they will like their kids to go to at least minimum graduation. Now, any nation which focuses so much on emphasis on the education for enhancement from one strata to another strata, along with wealth, that nation is bound to not bound to fail. It will rise because the youth don't take arms. They don't radicalize for wrong reasons. They are all wanting to move up the ladder based on the education, and education is empowerment. This is very, very strong inherent strength of India. The second will be uh, whatever the political setup, current political setup in India is. India always had, even when it was a very developing economy, it always takes stands on a lot of dharmic issues on the global stage, whether it's giving the most economical vaccine to the entire African continent, in spite of Africa being tapped by the Europeans and a lot of other rich countries for all their richness. The amount of give back which India has given in name of medicine or education based on its current capability is huge. So India will keep on playing that role. From the environment perspective, India takes stands which almost resonates with what China also says, even though India and China are not in good terms right now. But India will keep on raising that issue. The one area where India will probably is not getting right now, but should actually get, is the various because as a friend, India has to also help America. It's not always one-sided, right? It is high time when all the fault lines here, whether it's a BLM issue, whether it's an immigration issue, or whether it's the spread of the wealth among all as per their capability and their standing in the society. All those things India should step in, because as a friend, we cannot leave America just do things themselves. And I'm making a big statement. People will laugh. Oh, who are you? Well, I'm an Indian American, buddy, and I can definitely voice my concern. People like Elan Omar, in a good or bad way, she's raising issues which Americans never used to hear and never even imagined. But she is raising the issues, and she's part of the government. It's a high time when Indian Americans should step up and get into the government and start making things which will make America further strong. A lot of things America needs to learn because it has not learned or doesn't know or doesn't practice is it has huge wealth, right? It has immense wealth, but it doesn't know how to spread it. It gets in, it bobbed down into socialism and capitalism definition, but those are just narratives. But a government has a responsibility to do a lot of things. And I was reading just yesterday that America is running short of the testing kit for COVID. Imagine a country like India, which is like financially nowhere when compared to America, is giving kit to 3 to 4 times more population than America, and America is running short of this kit. So where is the priority? What's happening? You just go dump $2 trillion without asking the taxpayer in Afghanistan. You leave $85 billion equipment, and then you say, we are a socialist country. We cannot fund this project, this program. But what about your school system? You fund that, you fund your school system is totally a socialist institution. So America has to come out of this hypocrisy, and this is where Indian Americans, with their 360 view of the world rather than very tunnel focus, they can make a huge change. And I think we will make this country proud.
Thank you so much, Sharadji, for coming on the show again and sharing this new book of yours. And for viewers, the link of this book will be available in the description, and you can buy it and read it for yourself. Keep it in your library and share with others this knowledge. Thank you so much, Sharadji. Namaste, and thank you.
Thank you, Terry.